Hello and welcome everyone to the Doylestown Democrats Mayoral Forum. My name is Connor O'Hanlon. I am the chairman of the Doylestown Democrats, and I'm very excited to be hosting this. It's been like about a month in the making, and I'm happy to see that it came to fruition. We are going to be hearing from our three great candidates for the mayor position tonight. And in just a moment, I will be handing it off to Judy and Bonnie. But first, I would like to ask that if you guys are not already signed up for our newsletter, please go and do that by going to the Doylestown Democrats website, doylestown.democrats.com. We have our meetings the first Monday of every month. So if you would like to join us for that, it would be really, really awesome. And first, before we get into questions or anything more in depth, we're going to go to Bonnie and Judy on what the mayor actually does. So with that, I will pass it off.
All right. Thanks, Connor. Okay, so what we'll do is just give you a quick roadmap to this evening. We're going to start off with a brief overview of the mayoral duties so you know what the mayor does. And then the candidates will give a brief self-introductions of 2 minutes each. And then we'll ask questions. Bonnie Chang's going to lead us in that. And you can put your questions into Q&A. Please use the Q&A for your questions. Then after the questions are almost complete or as much as we can get in as possible, the candidates will have a closing statement. And then we'll send it back to Connor O'Hanlon, the chair for the Doylestown Democrats, for his closing remarks. Okay, so just a quick overview. It is the council that is primarily the legislator for the Doylestown Borough. It's not the mayor. The mayor only votes in case of a tie, and he is able to veto, or she is able to veto, but generally all the legislation is done by the Borough Council. The mayor does share administrative responsibilities, particularly on policing, where he or she will have a big part in the police regulations and rules. The mayor also issues an annual report, somewhat similar to the State of the Union. And the mayor is the only borough-wide elected official other than the tax collector. So borough councils have various districts, but only the mayor represents the whole borough. Next slide. And this is just a bit of a reiteration. The mayor is the primary elected official for public safety and policing. He does, or she does, support the liaison with the borough and has to incorporate all community stakeholders. So he is the mayor for the whole town, or she is the mayor for the whole town, and represents mayor-wide across the country, will represent our town. The mayor does work with the council to implement, not to legislate, but to implement the legislation that the council has put forth, to implement land use regulations, and the provision of public safety enacted by the council. It's important to know that this is a volunteer position. The mayor is not paid. The state does authorize a small payment or health benefits, but by customs, the Doylestown Borough mayors have declined to take payment. Now to introduce you to tonight's three mayoral candidates. First, I'd like to introduce Judith Fravelig. Then we also have Lolly Hopwood and Noni West. We'll ask each of the three candidates to give a brief introduction to themselves, starting with Judith. Judith?
Great. Yes, I'm Judith Fravelig. I want to thank Doylestown Dems. I want to thank Bucks Voices for this opportunity to share. As a former teacher, I was a little wary when you invited us for April Fool's Day. So I'm running for mayor because I love this town. I raised my kids here through Linden, Lenape, and West. And I want to keep the borough a progressive, vibrant community for other families, for our merchants, for everyone. The mayor is a charismatic leader who needs to understand the issues and connect people. And that's what I do well. I spent my career as a professor at Rider University, and I led large, successful projects where I had to bring together different stakeholders with very different views. So I connected corporations with state officials, with school districts, with nonprofits. So I can bring those skills to the position of mayor. The issues I hope we get to talk about tonight are important to me, and that is a greener Doylestown, how we can be good stewards for our town. Also bringing young children, our elementary school children, into civic life, making municipal government more visible and thereby bringing in young families. And I want to talk about balanced development, how we can grow while staying smart about preserving our unique charm and our walkability, our green spaces. So I hope we get to dig in tonight about that, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Judith. And now we'll turn it over to Lolly.
Hi, I'm Lolly Hopwood. My pronouns are she, her, they. Thank you so much for having me today, and I'm honored to be one of the 3 strong female Democratic candidates who are running for mayor. I've lived in Doylestown for 22 years. That means that although I wasn't born here, I have lived and worked in the borough for more than half my life. I've worked at stores that people consider to be the heart of Doylestown, like Siren Records. I was the manager there for 12 years. The Doylestown Bookshop. I'm a musician and author. I specialize in children's music, and I'm raising an amazing child who is a bold part of the LGBTQ+ community. This past year has been momentous. As much as it would be great to return to things the way they were pre-pandemic, society has pivoted, and it's essential to take a moment to see what that means for Doylestown and how we can move forward into a stronger, brighter, more equitable future. Because of my background, I have a unique connection and insight into what our local businesses have been going through over the past year. I know how important it is to revitalize the shops and the restaurants in our town in a safe way, especially the independent owned shops, many of whom are owned and run by people who live right in the borough. We also find ourselves in the middle of the next civil rights movement. So many of us, probably a lot of us who are watching today, have really been doing a lot of listening, learning, and reflecting when it comes to racial issues. Over the years, I've done a lot of work as a grassroots community organizer, many times working alongside organizations like Youth for Unity, Rise Up Doylestown, the Bucks County Anti-Racism Coalition, and more. In that process, I've seen a lot of hope and inspiration. I've also seen how very real and alive racism, misogyny, transphobia, anti-Semitism, and other forms of hatred are in our town. I know that we're not the only borough experiencing this, but we do have an opportunity to lead the way when it comes to addressing the problem. I'm glad to have an opportunity to answer your questions tonight and to talk more about how I would work for Doylestown as the mayor.
Thank you, Lolly. And now, Noni.
Thank you. And thank you, Doylestown Democrats, for hosting this forum. It's my honor to have served Doylestown for 12 years. I currently serve as councilwoman, vice president, finance chair, and alternate on the police commission. I've been a member of Doylestown Democrat since the early 2000s and was a committee person for 12 years. The borough is transforming a 3-acre brownfield into a park and implementing adaptive reuse of a 1930s building into our police and borough headquarters. After completion, enhancements will continue. We have suffered revenue shortfalls from COVID, as well as our retailers and nonprofits. I am part of the Community Recovery Task Force. A shift in the economy and lifestyles is bringing multi-dwelling unit construction into the borough. We need to review zoning, transportation, environment, infrastructure, and affordable housing in a meaningful way through an updated comprehensive plan. As mayor, I will continue to focus on these issues. Policymaking and administration are the charter of Borough Council. The mayor's role is one of strategic influence. In that role, working relationships with borough staff and council members are key. The primary responsibility of the mayor is public safety oversight, including police. I already serve on the commission, and there are synergies with my work where I implemented a pre-booking diversion program with the Philadelphia Police. And last but not least, I will continue and build the robust outreach and connectivity our current mayor, Ron Strauss, has forged. These relationships are the fabric of Doylestown. My tenure on council has built relationships with council, staff, police, organizations, and commissions critical to the role of mayor, who is our public safety czar, our outreach director, and strategic planner influencer. I would be honored to serve as mayor of Doylestown Borough Council. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Noni. Thank you, Lolly and Judith. Before we move on to questions, we have a brief polling questions that we'd like to ask the people that are watching here this evening. Bonnie, do you want to introduce the poll?
Sure. If Carl can put the poll up, we have a very quick poll. Do you live in Doylestown Borough? And it's just a quick yes or no, because we want to get a gauge in terms of the attendees tonight and where you live and how involved you are with the election of our mayor. So if you can just click on the answer and hit submit, and we will see the results almost instantaneously. I guess I should participate too. Right. Well, this is very exciting. I also want to just make sure people understand, if you have questions, please put it in the Q&A box on the lower right side of your screen. I am seeing quite a few questions in the chat, and the chat is you know, anybody can participate in the chat, and so it gets long. So it's very difficult for Judy and I to go through that to find questions. So thank you. Okay, we got the polling results. 79% of tonight are from the borough. All right, and then we appreciate the 21% of the residents from the township to give us support. So on that, before we go into the Q&A, I do have a couple of housekeeping items. One is to put the questions in Q&A. We're asking the three mayoral candidates to answer questions, and we want them to limit it to 1 minute because we have a lot of questions and we anticipate a lot of you have questions, so we want to fit it in. And we also are going to rotate the order of asking questions, so to be fair. And if you have specific questions for any individual candidates, we also want to have equal time. So we don't want, because Noni, for example, has been involved and a lot of people have questions for her, we may have to balance this. So I just want your understanding in advance. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go into some prepared Q&As. Let's just say this is January 2nd and you are elected the mayor. And as part of the mayoral duty, you have to do a State of the Union. So what would you say to the borough residents? What is the state of the borough? So I'm gonna go with, actually, I think you had Judith go first, right? So now we're gonna have Lolly go first.
Starting off with a big one.
Well, you can do it. You can handle it, Lolly.
Well, I mean, to be honest, a lot can change between now and January 1st. I think that we've all seen that happen. So I think that would be a question to consider closer to when that happens. If this was January 1st right now, and I was doing a State of the Union, I would probably emphasize a lot the youth activism that's going on in town, highlight that and uplift that. I think praising how well the businesses have really been working hard to rebuild themselves after the pandemic is very important. I feel a very positive person and like to highlight the good things before talking about the things that we need to work on. And then at that point, I probably would bring up some of the things that I did want to work on, specifically some of the racial issues, and pinpoint some of the ways that we are doing that. So I think that that would be my State of the Union, praise balanced with what we can do next.
Okay. Great, thank you. Sorry to put you first, Lolly. I mean, that was an easy question. So, Noni, how about you?
Well, I think the State of the Union would be good. As always says, there are a lot of things that are going to happen in the next year, and hopefully what we would be able to report is that through the efforts that we've made with our retailers and business, that there is a not revitalization, but that our retailers and restaurants have been able to survive through this year in COVID. As far as, and hopefully we will be able to announce that we can have more, parades and events and community events like we most likely will not be able to have at least through 3/4 of the year. We will be able to announce that we are in Borough Hall, that we've moved in, and that is a huge project. The park should be well on its way. So I think that we would have a very positive State of the Union. And also what is happening is that the American Rescue Plan has funneled money into, which is, it is so fabulous, has funneled money into local municipalities. And so the revenue concerns that we had at the beginning of the year are not going to be the revenue concerns that we have at the future. So things are actually, they're good. And I also think some of the things that we talked about, I know that there is concern about the multi-dwelling units in Ward 2. And at that point, we probably will have something to report on progress on how we are moving in that arena. And I think that's it in the short term.
Yeah, it's tough to have a State of the Union in 1 minute. So sorry, Noni, but thank you. All right, Judith.
Yes, I do think it's important to report on all the progress Lolly and Noni did mention. I would add, it's important that we don't come out of this pandemic and squander the opportunity to build a better normal. So I would have a plea to Doylestown. Let's not go back to normal, but think about ways to make Doylestown resilient and adaptable for the future. For example, I would really focus on bringing more foot traffic for our merchants on a permanent basis, making our town more walkable, connecting to our cultural assets, thinking about growth and more people, but in very smart ways so we can maintain our green spaces. So it is important to have the list of improvements for this upcoming year, but I think it's important to bring more voices to the table and talk about what have we learned from the crisis, and let's not go back to the same thing.
Okay, great. Thank you, Judith. I'm going to shift gear a little bit, and I'm noticing in the chat, people that has commented, and I do want to correct one of the statements. In the statement, we said that the mayor is the primary public safety official. Really, it's a joint responsibility between the mayor and the council. However, in Ron Strauss's case, he has been the primary lead because Doylestown does contract with Central Bucks Police Force. So Ron has been taking on a very important role in representing Doylestown Borough and negotiating the contracts with the police and doing that, covering that front. So we did misspoke, but understanding that the mayor does have a primary responsibility in ensuring the public safety, including sidewalks, including the contracting with the Central Bucks Police Force. And so that leads us to this next question. Doylestown Borough's general budget, we spend 50%, over 50% of our general budget on the Central Bucks Police that we contract. So you asked the candidate, what do you think about that? And do you think there's room for improvement? if you can give me your take. So we're going to go with Noni first, right?
So what figure did you use on percent of budget?
Well, this is, I think it was the first Vote Local session when Ron and Jack were presenting it. And they said that the general budget is something like 9 million or something, and more than 50% of that goes to funding the police contract. So, I mean, we know it's a high number, right? We were all surprised at how much money the borough spends on the police force. So, in your opinion, you know, is because if we don't do anything, the number will just go up, right? Because every year they have a raise, they have more pension, they have what have you, right? So, you as the mayor, what is your view on how we managed our contract with the police?
I think we may have lost Noni.
Oh, we lost her?
I don't see her. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, geez. Okay, so until she comes back.
Wait.
Yep, Noni dropped off. So maybe
Judith
take the question.
Yes, I'll respond to that, because we ask our police force, we need to support them to do the job we ask of them. So I do support that. In fact, I would, you know, as mayor, you serve on that commission. You're one of 6 members, three alternates, of course. And not only would I be able to fulfill that role, I would support building into the budget funds for staffing. I know that they are short-staffed. That is an ongoing concern. In the chief's words, we're too big to be a small force. We're too small to be a big force. So they do feel the squeeze there. I do want to mention there's ways we can supplement those resources with grants. We have several grants supporting the force right now with their canine program and their special victim program. And that's somewhere where I think I can support them, in fact. I know how to find grants, write grants, and win grants. Mm-hmm. And I would like to do that because that's a huge burden for taxpayers, but we don't want to have them caught short in the work that we've asked them to do.
I guess Noni's not back yet, right? Okay, so Lolly.
Sure. So, well, I mean, I think that taking 50% of, you know, our budget and putting it towards the police department is something that wouldn't be able to be easily altered. However, I do think it's really important to look at where that money's going and hold the police accountable for where that money is going. I think also as taxpayers, it's important for us to be able to push for certain things like anti-bias training and things like that to make sure that the police force is truly a force for the people. I had a really great conversation with one of the chiefs recently who, it was very humbling and it was really great having this moment where he said that he felt like he was constantly learning and constantly feeling like that there were biases that he needed to adjust, and just kind of realizing all that kind of stuff. I think that that's a really important conversation to have, especially if so much of our budget is going into the police department. But again, I think that we do have a very strong police force, and I think it's really important to recognize all of the good things that they're doing, but also to look at how we can improve that one way or the other.
Okay, thank you, Lolly. Noni, I don't know if you heard the question.
Yes, I'm back. I apologize. I was having a little technical issue and actually had to switch machines.
Oh,
I was rutching around a little bit. So I apologize.
Not at all.
It's not going to look as good, but at least I'm here.
Right.
So the question, as I understand, is how much money we spend on the police. Is that what I'm gathering?
No, it's not how much, it's that we are spending a lot. So in your opinion, you know, do you have a plan? Do you think that there's room for improvement, or, you know, how do you assess the situation?
Well, the police budget, I know that there's the concept of defund the police. Basically, the police department for us is primarily salaries, and they are important in protecting the safety of our community. And also, Doylestown is a community of 8,300 people, but during the day, because we are a county seat, that number can swell to 15,000 people or 20,000 people, or during Memorial Day parade. I mean, there can be 10,000 people at a Memorial Day parade at one time. So as far as man hours and staffing of the police, we are where we should be for the community. So there is very little room for us to say we can cut back on that budget because we can be putting money elsewhere. And that, I mean, that's pretty much where we are at this point. There is not a plan to cut back on our police budgets. We just did our, I believe it was a 5-year union negotiation, which turned out very well. We have a great police department. We have a chief of police who is very progressive. We now have a victims assistance unit. We have 2 dogs that other police departments use. So the quality of the police department is definitely not in question, and there is need for the manpower that we have. Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Noni. I also want to just go back and drill down a little bit, because as the 3 of you made your opening comments, and there seems to be a common theme. It's like you want to maintain the vibrancy of the borough, because, you know, the thing that makes the borough so wonderful is diversity, and you want to keep, you know, different younger family, older residents, you know, new families, and, you know, racial equality, what have you. So I think one of the things that come out of that is we have to have more affordable housing to attract and accommodate these needs and continue the community, to serve the community. So could I ask the 3 of you if you have any specific plan and how Doylestown can do better in providing, you know, affordable housing? So I think I'm going to go with you first, Noni, because you drop off, so I don't want you to drop off again.
Right. Change machines. Right. So that affordable housing, and actually I mentioned that in the beginning. I think that is something that we have to look at, and council and the community has to have a conversation about affordable housing and what do we think affordable housing is. So in looking at our comprehensive plan, which we need to do within the next year, definitely, I think we need to define what that is. At one point in having a conversation with somebody, I asked, what do you think affordable housing is? And their comment was $450,000 a year, or $450,000 in cost, which is, from my perspective, is not affordable. It's really not affordable housing. So we are aware of the issue of affordable housing, and that will be coming up in conversation. There are no state mandates that we have to follow at this point. So we really have to start to plan on our own how we want to approach that.
All right, thank you, Noni. It's Lolly, right? Or is it? Is it Judith? Judith. Okay, it's you. Sure. I'm trying to figure out the alphabetical order. Yes. Sorry, Judith.
So what I'm hearing in a lot of our comments is this idea of maintain, and I want to push back on that. I don't think that our zoning, for example, right now is going to, maintaining that is not going to help family-friendly housing. There's even some ordinances that I would like to see tweaked to make that possible. But all of that flows from having a vision, for having a comprehensive plan. Ours is sorely out of date. We need to update that. That's expensive. It takes a lot of time, but it's something that we have to do. Once we do that, I would like to push on some ordinances that put cars first rather than people first. For any new housing, we have to have 2-car accommodation, off-street parking, which made a lot of sense in the past. I'm not so sure 20 years from now, that's where we want to be as we change our commutes, as we change car sharing, as we change the nature of transportation. I think we need to be forward-looking and not think about maintaining, but think about changing. And I would also push for mixed use zoning. So as we do new housing, we want to avoid, this is the only part of town for commerce and this is for living. We need to have little pods. You don't want those monoculture pods. You want some flow. So that attracts family-friendly housing, which is going to make our town more diverse, with generations and different SES levels. So I don't think maintenance is where we want to go.
Okay, all right, great. Thank you, Judith. Lally.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is an interesting question. I think I'm probably in a very different demographic than a lot of the other people who are here. As a single mom, my idea of affordable housing is probably very different. I think, as Judith said, yeah, absolutely. I think that maintaining is not really where we need to go right now. I know a lot of people who have to leave town because there is such a lack of affordable housing within the borough, which is a huge loss because these are people who are still working here, who would be absolute assets to our community. But I also think about the kids who are graduating high school, who are going away to college. We want to have them be able to come back to our borough and to invest in it again. So I think that this is very important. One of the things that I've always felt, which is not a huge plan, but I think that it's a really important personal plan, is that some of the most affordable housing is coming from landlords and individual sellers who are making it available for individual families. And I think that being able to reward that kind of behavior instead of flipping houses and instead of like investing in something that's going to be affordable housing that's just going to be astronomically too high and is going to be bringing in a certain gentrification of our town. Obviously we want the town to flourish. We want it to be healthy and all of that kind of stuff. But I think that it's really important to reward the kind of behavior that does keep things affordable and to really consider where we're investing and what kind of different housing opportunities we're inviting into our town. I think that, there's compromises that are everywhere. I don't know that this is even necessarily something that the mayor has jurisdiction over. I know as part of as being part of a liaison, that it's definitely going to be something that the mayor would be in discussion with. But that's my thought, is rewarding the behavior that's making things possible and just looking at the big decisions that we're going to be making in the future and seeing how that fits in.
That's really great, Lally. I mean, that's a really good perspective. Judy, do you have any questions from, I'm sure we have tons of Q&A questions.
Yes. Yeah, there are. And it was interesting because housing was #1. Both Ginger Hardwick and Evelyn had both asked about affordable housing. So I think we have discussed it there and hopefully we've answered your questions on that. Wendy Margolis has a good question here. So we'll switch from affordable housing to how about the businesses? Wendy writes, what are the main ways that the mayor can help rebuild the borough retail and restaurant community post-COVID? And I think Judith, you would go first.
Sure, yes. And I want to reiterate that we need to learn from this crisis. Okay, we talk about crisis management in 3 phases, kind of that immediate crisis management in the first few months. And then we talk about helping our businesses over the next year with street closures and curbside pickup. And that's, you know, that full year, we need to be talking about that. And we're very lucky that our council has done a great job with that. Our borough staff has done a great job with that. But we now need to talk about phase 3, okay? Not what happens in that first year, and really 2 years. We're going to be 2 years here. But the mayor that's going to be sworn in January, that's 9 months from now. So that's where I really think it's important that we talk about resiliency for the town, not the immediate aftermath. We need to be talking about how we get more foot traffic to our merchants permanently. We need to be thinking about connecting different parts of our town with safe biking and walking ways so we can bring more people into town. We need to, I think, connect with our museums and make that that connection stronger with as we bring in visitors. They're very important museums, and I'd like to see those visitors be in our town as well. So we need to be thinking about what can we learn from this crisis. I'm not thinking in a doomsday way about the next crisis, but we need to think resiliency. We're into phase 3 starting in 2022. So we need to look forward to that better normal I was mentioning.
Great, thank you. Noni?
Well, what we're calling the Community Recovery Task Force is actually talking about that. And part of our goal is not to think about the street closures that we do during the summer, but we've already started to talk about how what we do now, how can that be transitioned and continue into 2022 and moving forward. The outdoor dining has been really popular, and what the retailers are finding is that it is bringing a lot of traffic to them. So we have started to have, in small ways, but it will get larger as we do the immediate tasks of organizing outdoor dining, is starting to talk about how we can continue that for the long term. And what is also happening with that is that the stores are thinking about doing street sales because we're doing outdoor dining. So I think the work that we're doing in the Recovery Task Force is going to overflow into the upcoming years. And that's part of what we're doing as a task force. And then what we do in the task force will then go to the council committees for them to start to solidify the things that we have to do to make those things permanent.
Oh, that's interesting. So is the task force a subcommittee of the Borough Council, or how is that organized?
It is a subcommittee created specifically because of COVID, and what it does is it's the chairs of the key committees that would continue policies that would affect the long-term change.
Oh, that's great.
How we do things.
Thank you. Lolly?
Well, I think one thing that's very important to recognize right now is that the businesses are still hurting. They're still, even though a lot of them are still there, a lot of them are still, pushing through. There's a huge economic hole that a lot of them as individual small businesses are digging themselves out of. And one of the immediate ways that we can help with that is by communicating with our representatives at the state level, at the national level, and make sure that when funding comes in, that those businesses are aware that it's there. I think that's a big thing, is sometimes it can get lost. And I think making it accessible to people, because, you know, when I was at Siren Records, I was doing the windows, I was doing orders, I was, you know, doing payroll, I was taking care of the schedule. I was also dropping everything if someone, you know, came in looking for a specific record. You know, it's a lot of multitasking, and sometimes you miss the emails, you miss the updates. So I think making it so much more accessible so that they can get that immediate relief that they desperately need right now is very important. I also think, I know that there's networks within the local businesses. There's text threads that they have, there's emails that they have, that is, it's a web that they have, which is wonderful. They've all supported each other. I know there's one amazing little tchotchke shop who's connected with another little tchotchke shop that just opened during the pandemic. And it's like, if one of them doesn't have something, the other one, you know, they connect each other, which is, I mean, talk about carry as you climb. I love that. But I think as the mayor, that would be a really wonderful way to pop yourself in there and just be like, we care about you, and we just want to let you know that this funding is coming through, and here's how to get it. It's just basic steps. That will definitely help put a shot in the arm, pardon the pun, post-pandemic, and will help the businesses to get to a point where they really can start thinking about all of these other things that you were talking about. Judith, I love the idea of making things more walkable. I've always loved the idea, especially during the holiday seasons, of giving the meters a break. It makes it so much more easy for people to come in and shop. So I think there's a lot of practical things that we can do. And also, if there's open business, open storefronts, maybe even looking at, you know, talking with the landlords about turning those into pop-up shops to really invigorate the downtown community, and give some new businesses an opportunity to really show who they are, be welcome in the town.
That's great. Back to you, Bonnie.
Okay. I wanted to shift gear a little bit to talk about you as an individual. Like, what are some of the qualities you feel that you feel that will, the qualities you feel will enable you to be successful as our mayor? Mm-hmm. And in addition to that, I just saw Julie Kimmel posted a question, and she was talking about, are there growth area that you feel like you may not, because you know, who is like ready to walk in to be the mayor day one, right? You have to grow, you have to learn. And so she's asking, what are the, maybe you can cite a growth area that you feel you will need to become our next mayor. So I guess Noni goes first.
I think the as I think about the role, the most important thing for me to do is outreach, to reach out to all, to the store owners, to discover Doylestown, to the museum, to all of that. I mean, the Civil War Museum, not just the Michener and the Mercer, to our nonprofits. So that I get to know everybody personally. I mean, I know some of the people, but our mayor has been, you know, the major connection. So to me, since I know the inner workings of the council, to me, it's that outreach arm. I mean, Ron even trained to be a fireman. I don't think that I'll do that. But I think that it's to continue that connectivity that has been so rich and is so important to the community. And as Lolly said, to know what is really happening with retailers. So for me, the immediate outreach and depth of Rolodex, which is probably an old phrase at this point, would be my first step.
Okay. All right, so we'll go to Lolly next.
So if I'm getting the question right, first you want to just talk about our strengths that
right.
use, and then where we can improve, like that question. So as far as my strengths go, I do feel like I am very tuned into a lot of the things that are in town. I'm a face that's out there, and I'm very connected with young families in town, with the teenagers in town. So I think being able to engage them in the governmental process, I think will be really exciting. And I think that's something I can do very well. I also think that, you know, as I was talking about before, being a friend of the businesses in town is something that I would love to bring to this role. I think things that I do need to work on, you know, a lot of the things like Noni was saying, Noni has a tremendous amount of experience in Borough Council, and I know I would be coming in with an open mind and open heart, really learning the best way to be in that role as mayor. I'm so grateful that we do have such a strong Borough Council. There's so many incredible people and so many different committees that are there. And since they're the ones who will be, they do a lot of the heavy lifting and they make a lot of the big changes. I think it would be very exciting to be in that role, but I think there's definitely a lot to learn, and it's constantly changing too. So yeah, I think just being humble about that and being able to learn as I go is going to be really exciting.
Thank you, Lally. Judith.
Yeah, so I think what I can contribute in this role as mayor is connecting our different community partners. That includes residents, merchants, museums, nonprofits. There's just such a big range of people living and working here in town. And so some of my strengths there are listening and inviting new voices into conversations that have maybe become entrenched with the same players, distilling complex issues into usable, relevant information depending on the group, helping groups connect that they can work synergistically. This is kind of what I love to do. And so I think therein lies my strength. The area that I need to grow on, because I need more knowledge about it, but it also fascinates me, is our zoning and land use. Okay, because many of the exciting visions I have for the future of Doylestown really are anchored in some of those nuts and bolts issues about land use. So I find that fascinating and really critical to our growth issues. So there's a strength and there's my area of growth.
Great. Thank you, Judith. Okay, Christine Johnson Hall posted a question. Doylestown Borough, because last summer we saw so many rallies, right? All different kinds of rallies. And it was sort of disruptive to the local business, right? And so how would you, as mayor, approach this and balance these competing needs? Wait a second. So who do we go first? Is it Lally?
This is a great question. So there's a couple of things that I have to say about that. One of them is when this was addressed originally, when people kind of started voicing that, a lot of the rallies did start being moved up to the courthouse in respect of the businesses. So I think that that's something that is currently being addressed. Obviously the State and Main section right there, right at Starbucks is still a place that has so much visibility. It's a place that I think people really are drawn to, and I don't know that it would necessarily stop being a place for spontaneous rallies. So one thing that I have to say about that is I noticed while all of this was going on, I can't speak for the Trump rallies because I had nothing to do with them and was very opposed to them. But I know the ones that I was involved in, the ones that I was there for, we had two different types of businesses. We had businesses who were very angry at the fact that we were there. And then we had ones who were supportive of us, who were supportive of what was going on. And those businesses naturally have been getting more support because of that, because they've taken a stand saying, you know what, Black lives do matter. We care about that very much. Come and use our bathrooms. You know, it's like, they understand that it's like, that it's a bigger issue. It's a social justice issue that's going on right here. So I think that it's a complicated question. I think that having more communication between the organizers and the businesses is really important. So that way the businesses can understand when something like this is happening and positive ways that they can support what's happening. But also communication with the protesters. I know at one point we had talked about, I don't think it was the Black Lives Matter rally. It was another one. I think maybe it was a Biden-Harris rally that we did, where a lot of businesses in town even offered discounts or offered things, you know, as a way to, because it's like, that's a lot of people coming into town. So instead of just being like, well, you know, we're here and we're going to disrupt, it's more kind of like, we're here. Thank you for letting us use this space. And as a thank you, we're going to support you and appreciate you. So I think that it's, there's a lot of different ways to turn these rallies into something that's good for town. I think that, again, as somebody who has been in a lot of them, I understand that it's being addressed and that it's important for the businesses, of course.
Okay. Noni.
Well, I think, I hope I'm not being Pollyannish here, but I think last year was a unique year. And I know that the businesses were upset when there was conflict with the protests. I mean, we, as a community, it's a First Amendment right for people to gather. So we have no control. I think that communication with whatever groups who want to hold rallies and protests, communicate with the police and communicate with the borough so that we are aware they're happening is the first step to help organize. I think when we run into problems is when we have protest groups that are in conflict with their missions and their goals. And that is when the retailers got the most upset, because it stops people from coming into town, especially when there were fights. So I am hoping that part of things has subsided at least. And the best thing to do is to communicate with borough and the police, so at least we can be prepared. And the police can be there in case there are problems. We cannot stop people from gathering because it is a First Amendment right. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that we can do at this point.
All right, Judith.
Yes, well, I don't know that things will subside. We are a county seat for a bellwether county, right? We are where protests will happen. So I like to think about what can we do upstream from the event, right? How do we forge strong partnerships with community partners, with borough government, with our regional police, and try to mitigate the disruption. It is our responsibility to allow for First Amendment rights. That's a given. But I think what the mayor can do is be more proactive rather than reactive, and try to get ahead of these issues by forging those relationships. And so for my approach, and I really feel strongly about this, the mayor is everyone's mayor. So I don't want to come down on a particular side. We have to be very mindful once in that role that we're representing our entire borough. But I think we can get a lot of mileage out of working upstream from the problem.
Okay. Do you mind if I just say one more thing on this matter? I'll be really quick. I just feel like the other thing is understanding what these protests are about. One of the things that was very discouraging is leading up to the Black Lives Matter protest last year, that there was a panic about it, and a lot of businesses had boarded up their shops. There was even businesses who had baseball bats ready for rioters, and there was no issues. And just addressing what Noni said before, the only issues that we've ever had are when the Blue Lives Matter ralliers came down with guns and bullhorns and all that kind of stuff. The Black Lives Matter protests have been very peaceful and very undisruptive. So I just wanted to put that out there, just because it's something dear to my heart.
Well, thank you, Lally. I've noticed some questions on the Q&A, and the comments are about, as tonight's Q&A evolves, we can see that Noni has a lot of experience with the council, with public offices and policy development, what have you. So, and Lolly and Judith don't have as much. So do you see that as a strength? Like, because you're not encumbered by the current, or do you see that as something that you need to catch up, right? And in Noni's case, like, that's the reverse, right? Because you have been so involved with the current administration, so to speak, for 12 years. So is that a plus or a minus? So I'm gonna throw this at the three of you. And I guess Judith can go first.
So I don't want to make it polarized. It's a plus or a minus. I think, you know, we're each individuals and we come at this kind of more holistically. I think the skills that it takes to be an effective council person, and Noni is mine, and she's been incredibly responsive. I had an issue a few years ago and she was over to the house and really helped out. But I think those issues are quite different than a more public-facing ambassador role. I'm not saying that they're not transferable, but I don't want to equate experience in government in one area to equal it in the other. Okay, so I do have experience in that group dynamics, bringing groups together. And I see the role, that executive role in that leader position as something I have a strong record in. I would enjoy an encyclopedic knowledge base of all of our legislative ordinances over the last 12 years. That would definitely be helpful, but I don't think it stops me. I think this more public facing role is really more in my wheelhouse.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to move on because I'm noticing the time and I have a few more questions I have to ask you. So we're going to go to, let's go to Lolly first, because you're the two, you and Judith have sort of a similar non-public background. So Lolly.
Absolutely. I think in a lot of ways it can be a positive to come in with a fresh perspective, to come in with a whole other set of skills and a whole other background. Again, I think that it's important to approach this humbly with less experience than Noni has, and to respect that that's what she has. I think that there's not necessarily a right or wrong choice here. And one of the things that I'm really excited about in this election is to give the choice to the people and have them decide what they think is the direction that they want to go. And again, it's, I have only respect for everything that the Borough Council has done so far.
So Noni, you're in the tough spot now. You have to answer this question.
Well, I just think my experience on council and working with staff has been terrific, and it is a great background for moving to mayor. The experience doesn't make me stale, because I've been in that for 12 years. I think the council, I think borough staff are always looking for new and innovative ways to do things. And for me, it's refreshing to think that part of my job now will be more outreach and in being able to do more of the things that I would like to do in community, working with the community. Because on council, we are, I mean, I'm chair of finance, it's numbers. We have to care about numbers. So I think the background that I've had just sets the groundwork for the move to mayor, and I'm excited about it.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think I will pose the last question, and it's sort of I think it's sort of an interesting one, because all three of you have been long-term residents of the borough, right? And you have long-standing ties with different individuals, organizations, and I see questions that Dead Anson posed. He's you know, so are there any potential conflict of interest or any disclosure you want to make so that all of us would know? And Dead is saying, Judith, like your husband, Ben Bell, serves on the council. So do you see a potential, you know, conflict of interest? And that's like thinking Noni, I'm sorry. I mean, and I'm thinking about Noni, it's like you have almost this a very strong support from the Doylestown Dem, right? So they're the engine for, you know, getting out the votes and what have you. So and I'm just saying that, would you like to make a public disclosure so that all of us know where some of the, you know, the information that would help us understand where you're from? So Judith.
Yes, I am married to Ben Bell. He is a sitting council member. That's not an issue. And the reason is, in Doylestown, we have a weak mayor system where the mayor does not vote on any issues before council, right? That's the legal structure that we have here in Doylestown. So that's not a conflict of interest. I would, as an aside, just to editorialize there for a moment, I would guard against us labeling female candidates about their marital status. I just want to be vigilant there. So full disclosure. Now, socially, I don't always admit to Ben being my husband.
Good answer, Judith.
You've met him.
Yes. So Noni, I mentioned about you have the full support of Doylestown Dem. I'm sure this is why Connor is trying to be very careful and what have you. So do you have any comments about, do you have the inside track or what have you?
You mean disclosure about anything in particular? I think I'm not exactly clear.
Okay, so I sort of set this up probably not very well. So
you just wanted to ask me. It's okay. You just wanted to ask me, and I'm fine with that.
Maybe I'm just not hearing right. I mean,
no, actually, I mean, I saw Dead Anson's question, and I'm going, okay, but I think that the fact that a lot of the Doylestown Dem folks are on your campaign team, right, Noni? So, yes. So I just think that people should know that. So that's just, you know, a fact. It doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It means that you have a lot of support from long-standing Doylestown Democrat people, right? So I just thought that's not a bad thing. So just thought that people would know that, you know, Ron Strauss is your campaign manager and the current mayor, right? So I just think that people should know that.
Yeah, I have support from people that I have worked with and people who can't vote for me. And I feel very blessed and fortunate in that respect. I thought that perhaps you were wanting to know if there was anything dark in our background that we should, you know, in case it came out. And I don't think I have anything there either.
No.
So I don't think I have anything to disclose.
No, actually, I think all the candidates have been screened by the Doylestown Dem, right? So if you have posted some racy pictures on your Facebook, they probably down now.
Right. Right.
Right.
So there did something come up on chat that the mayor can vote to break a tie on council.
Right.
Right, and I'll respond to that. And I think if we look at the record, our council meetings are off. The votes are often unanimous, and if not, they're 8-1. So if we go back many, many years and we look at that 8-1 breakdown, that is true, actually. So I don't want to deny that. Of course, they vote, and then they can be overridden. I mean, there is a structure in place for that. But if this is a question about my integrity on that time that there would be a tie, I guess it's probably behind.
It's probably about influence. I mean, if you're both living in the same households, you know, it's good to talk work, and then it's got the, you know, it does have the other side to talking work. So I think it kind of goes to both ways. But it is, I mean, it is an interesting fact. So it is good that it's brought up, and you know, for throwing your hat in the ring, all three of you, it's a wonderful thing that you're doing. So it's really nice. Yes.
Before we continue on the next question, I should clarify what Bonnie was saying is that Noni has people that are within the Doylestown Democrats on her campaign staff. The Doylestown Democrats has not endorsed anybody yet. That's why we're having this forum. So the endorsement process has not happened. The Doylestown Democrats has not endorsed anyone. So just to be clear, before we go forward, that is where it is at.
Thank you, Connor. Judy, do you see any other questions that we haven't touched on? Because
I think we're good. Yeah, I think we got a lot of them. I think that was everybody had some really great questions about the diversity, about the police, just about people's backgrounds. It was well rounded, and I hope that everyone got a lot of really good information.
So people in the chat, there are the links to the three candidates' website, and you can read their bios. I'm sorry, Lolly?
Oh, no, I was just pointing to the chat.
Oh, okay.
The entertainment side of me is coming out.
Thumbs down kind of thing. So please go there if you want to learn more about these wonderful candidates. So before we close, before I hand it back to Connor, the three candidates are going to do a short closing statement. So I forget who's supposed to go first. Okay, so Lolly, you go first. All right.
Fantastic.
Okay.
We're living in a rapidly changing world. We have a small but mighty borough that can really model the kinds of change that need to make the world a better place right now. Let's institute new ways for the bright, powerful youth in our community to get more involved. Let's help the businesses in town flourish in a post-COVID world. Let's foster a safer space for the LGBTQ+ community, especially the youth who are growing up here. And let's be bold about standing up against racism. The time is now. I'm Lolly Hopwood. I'm excited to be considered for mayor. Let's roll, Doylestown.
That was great, Lolly. Okay, Judith.
Yes. I think we all love Doylestown. We all want to see Doylestown be prosperous and vibrant. And our community has people with the energy, with the ideas, and with the capital. But Doylestown only gets one mayor. And so I think the mayor needs to be able to bring all these wonderful, resourceful, problem-solving people together. And that's something that I want to do for Doylestown. I want to ask for your support and joining me in that vision to build a better normal. And for the details we didn't get to chat about today, I'd love for you to visit my website, Judith for Doylestown. And I look forward to following up on questions we didn't get to, so you can contact me that way. Thank you.
That was great, Judith. Noni.
My candidacy for mayor is based upon my commitment to the whole health and well-being of the borough. More often than not, we get it right in Doylestown. We have challenges moving forward. There are changes in technology and environment, lifestyle changes, and there are probably even changes coming in political climate. I believe we will get it right. The council is up to the challenge, and so am I. I bring expansive experience from the past to build a foundation for the future. And a vote for Noni West is a vote for experience, compassion, and commitment. And thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Noni. So thank you, Lolly, Judith, and Noni for participating tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And most importantly, we want to thank you, we applaud you for wanting to dedicate a big part of your life to become an elected steward and champion for Doylestown, right? So with your participation, whether you become our mayor or not, I think collectively, you three will be instrumental in keeping Doylestown on the map as one of the best little towns in Commonwealth, right? So thank you so much. Yes. So let me hand this over to Connor so he can make his closing remarks.
So I'll echo what Bonnie just said. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you guys for running. Thanks for all who've attended. Bonnie and Judy, great job. And Jeff and Carl on the back end doing your thing too. Thank you guys. Also, I want to again emphasize that you can join us every first Monday of every month for our general meeting. So April 5th will be our next general meeting. If you aren't already a member of the Doylestown Democrats, this meeting will be for those members that are in good standing and live in the borough. Will be our endorsement meeting for this race. It will also be our endorsement meeting for all the other races, but they happen to also be uncontested for the most part. But that way we will do it via a Google form, and we will clarify that again on Monday, but it'll be about by 10 o'clock at night that we ask that your votes be submitted. That way we can have it calculated, we can verify it, and we can look hopefully to get it out by the next day if we have an endorsed candidate. And you need 60% threshold of eligible voters to get the endorsement. So we'll go over all the rules again on Monday, but that is where that will take place. You can learn more also about our Vote Local interview series, which Bonnie and Judy also are moderators on and have been doing an excellent job on that. So, and I believe the next one will be with Robin Robinson, correct? That'll be, yes. So our recorder of deeds, who is up for re-election this year. And I think that is mostly all that I have. Our meeting will be on Monday at 7 p.m. via Zoom. You can also sign up for our newsletter at doylestown.democrats.com. Please do so you get all the information for, well, Jeff also puts a lot of information just to inform people, but also to know when our meetings are, to know when the Vote Local interview series is taking place. So if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out. Bonnie, you have something to say?
Yes, actually, I just wanted to correct one thing, that the next Vote Local series are the 3 row officers, not just Robin Robinson.
Okay, cool.
They also have Neil Doherty, the controller, and Judy Reese, who's the prothonotary. And I want to say that people probably have heard them before, but this time they're going to see very different view. They're actually going to see the office, and we want to make it interesting. We want to help people learn more about their office, and Judy has been going to their offices and took videos. So if you think you know what the prothonotary office looks like, you have to watch or come participate in our session.
April 21st.
Sorry, Connor, we have to say
that. Oh,
that.
no, I appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot of work going into that. So if you guys would like to join that, we would really appreciate it. And once again, thank you to everyone for coming out, and I hope to see you all on Monday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.